AppStateCentral.com weekly podcast.
Good evening and welcome to the 10th installment of the AppStateCentral.com weekly podcast. As always, a big thank you to the Marching Mountaineers and the Appalachian Sports Network for providing those sound clips you just heard in the intro. And this is Bryden, and along with me is my co-host Mike. Mike, how you doing tonight, man?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I'm recovering.
I hear you. Where are you located tonight? Last week you were up north somewhere. Where are you at this week?
Oh, I'm back home. Charlotte, North Carolina.
Good deal. Good to hear. Glad to have you back. And as we all know, on Saturday we took a tough loss, 38-28 to Wofford at Kid Brewer Stadium, and we took the lead going into the fourth at 28-24 or into the fourth quarter, and Wofford just basically outscored us 14-0 in the final frame, and a part of that 14-0 run was a backbreaking fumble recovery for a touchdown that was controversial at the time, and it just killed us. It killed all momentum we had, and so tonight we're going to go ahead and recap all that action, all the action around the SoCon as well, and then also talk about the positives and the negatives that we took from the game this weekend. And then just like the team has to do at this point, we're going to go ahead and turn our focus to the game in Colowee this weekend as we prepare for the Battle of the Old Mountain Jug. So before we get into the bulk of the show, Mike, go ahead and give our listeners a reminder about how to reach us, especially via the social media.
Yeah, as always, if you'd like to interact with us either during the show or anytime throughout the week, you can send us a tweet. Our handle is @AppStateCentral. You can post on our Facebook wall, found at facebook.com/AppStateCentral. We always welcome the feedback and suggestions. Also, as well, if you're just cruising by the site, sign up. You can always post a comment on one of the blog posts. You can go on the message board and post. Plenty of ways to get in touch with us, and we always welcome feedback.
Yeah, definitely. And adding to what Mike said, you can actually go in and create your own blog. So if you just love app or want to write or whatever, you can create your own blog on there, and we might feature it on the site. So please stop by and check that out. And so I guess we'll kick off tonight's show with the Around the SoCon segment, and it's going to allow us to get caught up on all the other games around the conference and what the conference championship picture looks like heading into Week 9. It's a fairly new segment. I believe this is the third time doing it, and we've had good response, so we're going to continue to do it. So, Mike, go ahead and give us your take on the other games and how the SoCon picture is shaping up for us.
Yeah, well, I think outside of obviously the game in Boone, probably the most important one to us was played in Greenville this weekend. Georgia Southern beat Furman 38-17. This is a game that's actually very close until late. The Georgia Southern was actually trailing 10-9 late in the third quarter before Jarrett McKinnon hit Zach Walker for a 75-yard touchdown late in the third. They made the two-point conversion, went up 17-10. Ended up kind of pouring it on them late. They scored 21 in the fourth. Ended up winning the game 38-17, as I mentioned. They threw the ball some this game. They had 10 pass attempts, completed 6 of them for 165 yards, and that touchdown I mentioned earlier. Sophomore Dominique Swope continues to have a good year as their primary running back. He had 67 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Outside of that, Elon of Western Carolina played this weekend. The final was 42-31 Elon. Western did mount a pretty good comeback on them. Elon was up 35-7 before Western eventually closed the gap to 35-23 in the fourth quarter. Who else but Aaron Millett put the game away with a touchdown. Millett had 154 yards and 3 touchdowns. Thomas Wilson had a monster day. He passed for 378 yards and 5 scores. Elon had 511 total yards and just ended up having a little too much firepower for Western, and then they ended up winning by 11, 42-31. And the final SoCon game that happened this weekend was Chattanooga winning 20-13 over Samford. And Chattanooga led the whole game. They're actually up 20-3 going into the final quarter. Samford, Fabian Truss scored a rushing touchdown. Samford put up 10 in the final frame, but came up a little short. Jacob Huseman passed for 164 yards and a touchdown, ran for another 64 and a touchdown. Terrell Robinson Was still out there playing some quarterback. He was 5 of 6 passing, only 15 passing yards. He actually led the team this week again in receiving, had 9 receptions for 65 yards. And since the loss at home to Appalachian, Chattanooga's ripped off 3 straight. They've beaten Furman, the Citadel, and Sanford. So they are, along with Georgia Southern, surprisingly, the only other team in the Southern Conference that controls their own destiny. Wofford is 4-1, but since they do have a loss to Georgia Southern, they don't control their own destiny in terms of the auto bid. Chattanooga is 3-1, and they still have Wofford and Georgia Southern on the schedule. Georgia Southern and Chattanooga played this weekend in Chattanooga, and this game is now looking a lot bigger than it did just a couple of weeks ago. And I think myself, as well as most all other App fans, are going to be pretty big Chattanooga fans this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a anybody playing Georgia Southern fan so far right now. So yeah, we exactly like you said, the SoCon, Georgia Southern, and Chattanooga are the only ones that control their destiny, and we are surprisingly, even though we seem to have a lot of fans that are trying to jump off the cliff already. We're only one game back. We win out, we make the playoffs, and who knows? Depending on what happens the rest of the other games, we might be tied for first place finish still. Our season's not over by any means. It's a lot tougher road now after that loss to Wofford, but Wofford's a good team, obviously with their 4-1, and their only loss coming to Georgia Southern in Statesboro by 7 points, I believe. So they are a good team, and not all is lost, regardless of what some people are thinking.
Yeah. I completely agree. It's obviously that game down in Statesboro in a couple weeks is looming large for us. That's going to be a tough win to come by. 2 losses does make it very difficult for us to get the auto bid, but we still got a lot to play for. I don't think this year that 7 wins necessarily is gonna make you a lock out of the Southern Conference like it has in some years past. But I do think that if we go 7-4, we'll have a good shot to win the Southern Conference. And obviously, we've still got a huge opportunity down in Statesboro as well. And if we're able to go on there and get a win, and obviously win out all of our last 3 games, we're certainly going to be in the playoffs. And we'll have to kind of see where the chips fall in terms of a conference championship. But we've still got a lot to play for. Kind of have to take it one game at a time. We have to look forward to this game at Western Carolina right now, and that's one thing I think that's really lost on lost on a lot of people after that game with Wofford. It was a very disappointing loss. We made some mistakes late, but at the same time, it's Wofford is a very good team. I truly think that ECU included, that Wofford has the best defense we've seen all year, and they put some pressure on us, and we struggled offensively. We made some plays to make this game very close, and we actually had the lead going into the fourth quarter. So a loss is always tough to swallow, but considering the quality of the team that we were playing, and the fact that we did go down to the wire with them, I think there are some positives to take from this, especially after what happened last time we faced a triple option offense that was not nearly as good as Wofford and the Citadel.
Exactly, yeah. We definitely showed improvement on the defensive side, at least, against the triple option. And something else that's interesting to note in the Southern Conference race is Chattanooga, who obviously beat Citadel. They are, by at least by my opinion, are the best at defending the triple option in the league. They have a very strong defensive line. That's their strong point. And like you said, they still have Georgia Southern and Wofford on their schedule. So who knows what's going to happen in the Southern Conference? It's still wide open, so to speak. So there's still some hope for us, albeit it's a tiny sliver of hope at this point. There's still some hope for us, and if our boys can get back and get back into the gear and get going again, we still got a good shot, I think.
Yeah, and I certainly agree. And I think big picture, one thing that we really need to consider is that, we've got 12 coaches on staff. 8 of them weren't here last year. And we're still transitioning into a new coaching staff. And when you look at our 2 deep, we have 26 freshmen and sophomores on our 2 deep. That is almost half of the first and second strings between offense, defense, special teams. We are very, very young. There's a lot of youth on this team, especially up front on both sides of the ball, and there is going to be a bit of a learning curve. And Wofford really, I mean, they took it to us, and they're a very good team, and they've got a lot of veterans on that team that have been there, they've done that, and they're returning, nearly everybody from a very good team last year. And even though they do have a new quarterback, Brian Caston there, he's a junior. He's been there for a while. He understands that offense, and it's just one of those things where sometimes experience does trump talent. I think that this program and this team is heading in the right direction. I think we will get there. We just need, patience. It isn't necessarily a strong suit of any college football fan, but I think we kind of have to have a little bit with them. And I am very high in this new coaching staff, and I like the way that we're going. But when you have that much youth on the roster, you're going to see some inconsistency. You're going to see some boneheaded plays, and we certainly saw that this weekend.
Yeah, definitely, and I guess that's a good segue to go into what we saw this weekend, and I guess we should talk about the disheartening loss that we suffered over the weekend. And so I guess, Mike, just go ahead and start out. And what stood out to you that as the biggest mistakes that ultimately cost us the game?
Well, it's hard to, like always, it's hard to really point at one thing and say, that's the reason we lost. It was a lot of little mistakes that really added up. One, I think, that stands out and has been particularly frustrating to App fans because it was such a preventable thing was the discipline. And Joel Ross, obviously this is his second week with the defensive touchdown. He was excited. It was a huge game in front of the home crowd, but he did a flip into the end zone that got us a 15-yard penalty. Then Sam Martin followed that up with kicking a kickoff out of bounds, and that gave Wofford the ball at midfield, and they were able to get that 7 points right back in less than 2 minutes and get that lead right back out to 10. So, as great as it was that he was aware and he was there and he scooped the ball and was able to outrun the offense and get into the end zone. The flip at the end and the kickoff out of bounds kind of negated that. It was almost like our defense expending a lot of energy for nothing, and it was. That was a little disheartening to see. We also gave up some big plays on the ground. Again, credit's got to go to Wofford for a lot of that. But, we had Eric Breitenstein had a 57-yard run. Backup quarterback Michael Weimer had a 35-yard run. Starting quarterback Brian Cass had a 44-yard run. We on the day Wofford averaged 6.3 yards per carry, and obviously you're not going to win many games when you're giving up 6 yards per rush on the ground. But if you take out those three big plays, it was a much more manageable 4.4 yards per carry. And if you can eliminate those big plays and keep them at around that 4 yards per carry clip for the afternoon, you're going to at least have a shot. Obviously, that averages out to them getting a lot of first downs. But if you can eliminate those big plays and kind of stop those momentum plays where you've kind of stopped it for 2 yards, stopped it for 3 yards, and then they break your back with a big 25, 30, 40-yard run, then I think that gives you a much better chance to win. And on the other side of the ball, the offensive line, they seem to be kind of overwhelmed all day. Some of that comes down, as I mentioned earlier, that I think Wofford's got probably the best defense we've seen this year. Their D-line was really getting after us. Jamal Jackson didn't have much time in the pocket, wasn't able to really let any plays develop down the field, and so he was forced to pass a little shorter probably than he would have liked to. And when he did that, his receivers didn't help him a whole lot, particularly Stephen Miller and Sean Price. They each dropped a handful of accurate passes. One thing that you and I spoke about before the show that really was a momentum changer and that kind of set the tone in the wrong way was after the App defense got a 3-and-out on the first drive. Sean Price posted up behind the sticks and Jamal hit him right on the hands, and Price barely even slowed it down, went right to a Wofford defender, and our defense was right back out on the field after what looked like was going to be a sure first down gain and possibly a sustained drive that could get us an early lead. And that was that was big. That kind of set the tone for the game. And from there we continue to make some mistakes offensively. That turnover as well as the late fumble that